Let's go ahead and dive into the Notre Dame offensive line, Lou. It's a different look unit this season, certainly than what we saw last year. You lose your starting two offensive tackles in Liam Eichenberg and Robert Hainsey. Your guards are moving on to the NFL as well, and Aaron Banks and Tommy Kramer. Some of your key returning players, Lou. JARRETT Patterson played in 8 games, 563 snaps, strong PFF grade as well of 81.7 on the season. Josh LUGG returns 252 snaps last season, 415 career snaps as well. Zeke Carroll, saw him in the lineup a good bit last season, 189 snaps. Dylan Gibbons, 116 career snaps. He started a game last season as well. So the interesting thing about, you lose 4 starters. You return 2 guys, that I would say are starters as well, in Patterson and LUGG. LUGG started and played a good bit in his college career, Lou. All 4 of these guys that are returning that we mentioned, LUGG's played some tackle, but for the most part, that all have played mainly on the interior. Notre Dame's going to need someone to play tackle.
I've been searching around all over. I have it someplace, but a Rubik's Cube, I think people know about it, where you have like thousands and infinite, almost an infinite amount of combinations that you can put together. That's the Notre Dame offensive line this spring. One of the toughest things, we put out our April edition, the spring preview this week, and just lining up everybody where we just tried to find a balance so that you have like 3 guys at each position. And that was a chore in itself. I mean, Josh LUGG could play any of the 5 positions. I don't think he'll play center with Zeke Carroll. I think they want to put him there. But now that you have Zeke Carroll there, JARRETT Patterson, does he move out to left tackle? That's been a position where there's been just unparalleled tradition under Brian Kelly. He's had 3 straight first-round picks there with Zach Martin and Ronnie Stanley, Mike McGlinchey. Not out of the question that Liam Eichenberg could be too. Maybe he'll be second round or so, but he's going to be an integral figure as far as just the leadership. And the other part there, Mike, is he had this foot surgery in November, and I don't think there's expectation that he'll be able to play much this spring, if at all. So Zeke Carroll, I anticipate, will be receiving the lion's share of snaps at center. And now you have to develop a chemistry with everyone else there as well. And then if Zach does move outside, or Zeke, I'm sorry, I have Zach Carroll, and then you, of course, have JARRETT Patterson. He could be moved out maybe to left tackle, and that's an adjustment as well. So even your most experienced figure on the offensive line might be at a new place and learning.
Yeah, and Josh LUGG as well. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what Notre Dame does on the offensive line because, like you said, Lou, there's a lot of moving pieces. I'm sure the Notre Dame staff, in their meeting rooms, is maybe I would think it's fun. Maybe they think it's a stressful chore of figuring out all these different position groups, or excuse me, like positions along the offensive line, and it's like a puzzle they're trying to put together. We've done the quarterback, quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end previews so far. I didn't really have to do any research there, Lou. It's pretty self-explanatory. Like we know the names. Notre Dame's returning talent at all of those positions. I guess in quarterback, more looking at Jack Cohn. But the offensive line, it's much more, for the lack of a better term, a crapshoot right now, trying to figure out what this is going to look like.
Well, the good news, though, is that you're not lacking in talent. You, as the recruiting insider, you've seen how Notre Dame has recruited the position the past several years. You have even a guy like Quinn Carroll, who's entering his junior season. Now, he missed his freshman year because of a torn ACL in the preseason, but he was, I believe, the number 68 ranked player in the country. Could he play that one of the tackle positions? Is it necessary to move him inside to guard if he's one of the 5 best players and you have 2 of them already established at tackles? a Tosh Baker. He was, a top 100 player for a while there. Michael Carmody in the top 250. So many guys, it just endless as to how many possibilities you have there. Andrew KRISTOFIC from Pennsylvania. He's been getting some very good reviews from what I understand from the coaching staff as somebody who could also help tackles. So it's a matter of just what are the best pieces and where are those pieces best. So somebody might be one of the five best players, but is the position he's going to be aligned at best for him? I mean, we've even talked Tosh Baker's classmate, Michael Carmody. Is he going to be a guard? Is he going to be a tackle? And oh yeah, we haven't even gotten into the freshmen there, which includes a couple of other top 100 players, a five-star Blake Fisher, and then of course ROCCO Spindler as well. So where do they fit in?
Yeah, good stuff, Lou. And you mentioned, I'm the recruiting insider at Blue and Gold, and coming up on 2 years now. It's gone by fast, and it's also been a long 2 years as well. We've been through a lot here, and I would say for the first year and a half of my my time here at Blue and Gold was in looking at the coaching staff. The guy who got the most, I don't know, a good term here is criticism. I would say is probably the best term is Quinn. On the field and as a recruiter, and I'm not hearing that much anymore, Lou. Notre Dame signed easily one of the top 5 offensive line classes in the 2021 cycle with the 2 you just mentioned in Spindler and Fisher. Caleb Johnson is a bona fide 4-star player as well. He enrolled early. Joe Alt, I'm the president of the Joe Alt fan club. Love that young man. Pat Coogan, another 3-star who just had offers from Ohio State, LSU, Oklahoma, Oregon, and Michigan. Just that. Those offers. So now it's funny. It's kind of seemed to shift more towards Tommy Rees and Dell Alexander as the ones who get the most criticism, but not so much on Jeff Quinn anymore. What's kind of your feeling on Jeff Quinn going into this season? He doesn't have any. These are all his recruits now, right? No other Harry Hiestand leftovers.
Yeah, when he took over in 2018, replacing Harry Hiestand, they were kind of almost in a similar position because you had lost Quentin Nelson and Mike McGlinchey from the previous group. Plus, Dars got in I believe, the 5th game early against Stanford. So, guys like Liam Eichenberg and Aaron Banks, Robert Hainsey, Tommy Kramer were kind of just getting into that adjustment. And so he had that nucleus for 3 years to mold. And it doesn't come overnight where they're just immediately established. I don't think they really came into their own until about 2020 last season. And they just played with such a confidence and knowledge base with each other. So now you're kind of starting over. It's not a case of, again, lacking talent. Look, Eichenberg and Kramer, these were top 100 prospects. Robert Hainsey started as a true freshman, and you're having similar situations now too. So it's not an issue of, are these guys good enough? Can they play at this level? Notre Dame can recruit with the best of them on the offensive line and at tight end. It's how do they mesh collectively as a team? How do they coalesce? How do they find 5 best individuals who can work as one?
Yeah, no disagreements there. Great points. Notre Dame's got the talent, just not as much as the experience as you returned the past couple seasons. So let's touch on the two big true freshmen there. I mean, I want to give love to Caleb Johnson. Just my personal opinion is I don't think that he's someone that I would look at as a guy who's going to play meaningful snaps as a true freshman. Do Blake Fisher and ROCCO Spindler fit that? I don't know. That this is at least my kind of best guess. So Blake Fisher, the 5-star per Rivals. We had him on our cover of the Blue and Gold recruiting issue photo that I took. One of my favorite photos. I've been able to take a recruit out on the road. So he's a big-time player. ROCCO Spindler, Notre Dame's prized recruit from Clarkston, Michigan, Irish beat out. Just about everybody under the sun for him. Michigan finished as the finalist, Ohio State, Penn State as well. So, I mean, there's no way for us to predict right now if these guys are going to be able to break into the rotation this fall. But this spring, like we just talked about, Lou, there's opportunities for really any. I mean, you can look at about 9 or 10 offensive linemen to be like, the opportunities are all there for these guys. And Blake Fisher and Rocco Spindler, again, they could break into the rotation.
Mike, normally I would not even talk about offensive linemen in the mix for starting position.
As a true freshman?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I'd even talk about them being in the too deep, never mind starting. This year is an exception. If Rocco and Blake were to have come in last year, I said, no, there's no chance. There is a chance this year because it is so wide open at so many positions. And since 2008, from 2008 through 2020, Notre Dame signed 45 offensive linemen. Among those 45, 42 redshirted as freshmen. The 3 exceptions were Trevor Robinson in 2008, Steve Elmer in 2013. Both started about 3 or 4 games that year. And then, of course, Robert Hainsey, who was the co-starter with Tommy Kramer at right tackle in 2017. So not full-time, but regularly in there. The common thread with all 3 of those guys is they were early entrants. They were able to go through a spring practice. And that way they were able to just at least get a feel for the offense, and the coaches were also able to assess whether they're ready or not. So the fact that Rocco and Blake are both in here and will have 15 spring practices, and because everything is so wide open, I don't discount the possibility that they could be factors in the lineup. Maybe not right at the outset, but perhaps as the year goes on.
Lou, can you give me, I knowing you, this is not your favorite thing to do, but can you give me like a way too early, maybe what Notre Dame could trot out there on their first practice as the first team offensive line? Like, what would be your best guess at this point?
Well, Zeke Carroll, I'm comfortable
That's a good one.
saying would be the center.
Well,
Because
Lou, let me interrupt
again,
you. Let's say with the healthy, I'm gonna, yeah, I know where you're going. Let's say with the healthy JARRETT Patterson.
Okay. Wow, that changes things a lot. I think they're ready to go with Zeke Carroll at the center if I had to take a guess. And then I could see JARRETT, who originally was recruited as a left tackle. He played left tackle or lined up there as a freshman, appeared in a couple of games too. I could see him moving out to that left tackle spot just because of the tradition and the importance that has been there at that position. And he would be as the top lineman. Andrew KRISTOFIC, I think, could also compete there. The left guard position, wow. I mean, that could be a Dylan Gibbons. I mean, he started on senior day at Notre Dame last year when there were injuries to both Tommy Kramer as well as Jared Patterson, then Zeke Carroll at center. Right guard, I mean, the veteran there, I believe, would be John DIRKSEN there. And as a senior, I think he might get that first look there as well. And then, the right tackle, I'd probably have to go with Josh LUGG because he started basically the last 6 games of 2019 there when Robert Hainsey suffered an ankle injury on the first series against Virginia Tech. So, that's the first series, and Josh LUGG comes in there and then starts the next 5 games. And then last year he worked at both guard and center too. So he's that Swiss Army knife who could work most anywhere. But I think maybe the original comfort level might be at the right tackle spot for now.
So let's get into our 2 questions that we're asking for each position group. Who or what is the X factor on this offensive line, Lou?
Boy, let's take out the roster, and I could probably make a case for just about everyone here.
Right.
But I'd have to go, and this is maybe a very, very boring pick, but Jarrett Patterson,
I agree.
just as far as being able to, potentially adjust to a new position. And even if he doesn't, just the leadership at the center position, how
Yeah.
he would adjust there. But, when you're following in the footsteps of a Zach Martin, a Ronnie Stanley, Mike McGlinchey, and a Liam Eichenberg, demonstrates just how significant that position has been through the years. And you're making a transition, and you're the veteran of the crew there as well. So that's one way or another, whether he would be at center or at another position, he's going to be a vital figure as far as just providing a leadership to the rest of the group.
One interesting thing is 6'4.5". He wouldn't be the tallest left tackle in the world. I'm not sure about his arm length
Yeah.
and everything, but not he would be a shorter left tackle. My X factor. How about Tosh Baker? Talk about that length at 6'8". From what I've heard from sources inside the Goog, very good things I've been told about Tosh Baker. So I would say if Tosh Baker is your, one of your starting tackles on the offensive line, it would be because he's a talented stud and not out of necessity. Because there are some good players, like we've talked about here. Notre Dame is not, missing a bunch of talent here. Like Notre Dame's got plenty of talent on the offensive line. So I think that would be like a good thing if Tosh Baker were there. Is he ready? I don't know. And then I can't be 100% certain, at this point in time, but you'd be looking at a 4-year starter potentially. So a lot to potentially be excited about there. And then the last question.
Mike, you define it better, because the X factor is really defined as the unknown element. I think people know what they have with Jarrett Patterson, a very good football player. The unknown element is if he moves, what kind of domino effect does that
Right.
have everywhere else as well? So it's not necessarily just about Jarrett Patterson, but the tremors or the after effects of it, the ripple effects, if you will,
Yeah.
there. And Zach Martin was another guy who he was not the longest guy, or same with Robert Hainsey too at right tackle. And Robert will probably move to guard or center in the NFL as well, just like Zach did, and has become a perennial all-pro player at right guard. So maybe that's another position for Jarrett too. But that's what's so unknown.
Yeah. No, I agree. If I would have went first, I would have gone with Jarrett Patterson, and not only the domino effect, but can he play left tackle? Because if he can, if he can play a solid left tackle, then that figures out a lot of things for Notre Dame. Like that shores up one, because you have plenty of interior players. We know Josh Lugg can be a very serviceable offensive lineman. We already know about Zeke Krill. I think Dylan Gibbons would be a very good guard. But the tackle spots for me are a little bit more of unknown. So if Jarrett Patterson, a guy you do know well, can fill one of those spots, that would be a huge boost for this team. Again, just one man's opinion.
Yeah, Joe Moore always said you start everything in the offensive line from outside and work in.
Right.
I mean, that 93 team, when he had the previous year, he had Aaron Taylor and Todd Norman as the guards, and then both tackles graduated. First thing he did was he moved Taylor and Norman out to the tackle positions, because that's the edge is what you got to take care of first. And I think that's something that remains pretty much unchanged in football.
So our last question again. So we do the X factor, and then is this, going into the spring, is this unit better than it was last year? And so quarterback was a no. Running back was an easy yes. Tight end was, I think we said a no, because you lose Brock Wright and Tommy Tremble. Receiver, I can't remember what we agreed on, but offensive line is pretty obviously it's a no. That you just lose too much talent there.
Yeah, that was a record 114 career starts coming back for Notre Dame last year along the offensive line. You just don't see that very often. And maybe 2 years from now when we revisit it, like I said, this is kind of like going back to 2018. And 2018 wasn't a bad year. They ended up in the college football playoff, but it's just kind of a reload year. But at the same time, you're not expecting them to play at the level that last year's offensive line was able to, just because of the experience factor.